Maya wasn't picky, she couldn't afford to be. After losing her job and scraping by on savings, she needed a cheap place fast. When she found the ad for the one-bedroom on the edge of town, it felt like a lifeline. The building was old, the kind with creaky floors and water-stained ceilings, but it had its charm. The rent was cheap, and the landlord seemed eager to fill the vacancy. "It's been empty for a while," the landlord, an older woman named Mrs. Kilpatrick, had said, her eyes a little too eager as she handed Maya the keys. "People come and go." She didn't explain why, and Maya, desperate to get settled, didn't press. The first week was uneventful, though the apartment felt unusually cold, especially in the hallway outside the bedroom. Maya figured it was just the drafty windows, and for the most part, she convinced herself the place had character. But something about the space gnawed at her, a heaviness in the air, a sense of being watched. At first, it was easy to ignore. The place was old. It made noises. That's what she told herself. But soon, the unease started creeping into her day-to-day. It began with small things. The door to the bedroom would be ajar in the morning when she was sure she'd closed it. The lights flickered randomly, especially at night, but the building was ancient, so faulty wiring wasn't a surprise. Maya tried to brush it off, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone was watching her. Every night around 2 a.m., she would wake to a soft, rhythmic tapping sound. At first she thought it was the pipes, but it didn't match the timing of the heating system. The sound came from the wall by her bed, 3 slow taps. She tried to ignore it, but the noise started to get under her skin. After a week, the tapping grew louder, and her patience wore thin. One night, she lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the sound. When the tapping came steady and deliberate, she snapped. Sitting up in bed, she banged her fist against the wall in frustration, 3 hard knocks. The tapping stopped immediately, and the silence that followed was suffocating. For a moment, Maya felt relief. Then, from the same spot on the wall, she heard a single tap. In response, her blood ran cold. She convinced herself it was her imagination, just the stress of moving, or maybe a neighbor messing around, but deep down she knew better. The following day, the cold draft in the hallway seemed sharper, and every time she walked through it, she felt like something was brushing against her skin, just lightly enough to question whether it was real. That evening, she finally asked Mrs. Kilpatrick about the apartment's history. The older woman hesitated. "The last tenant moved out quickly," she said, not meeting Maya's eyes. She didn't say why. Maya pressed her for details, but Mrs. Kilpatrick just shrugged. "People sometimes say they hear things. Old buildings like this, they hold on to a lot." That night, Maya couldn't sleep. The tapping returned, louder, more insistent. But now it wasn't coming from the wall. It was coming from inside her room. She sat up in bed, heart racing, eyes wide as she scanned the room. The tapping grew closer, like footsteps moving across the floorboards. She flicked on the lamp beside her bed, flooding the room with light. Nothing. But when she looked down, she saw it, faint but unmistakable. The dusty floor had footprints, bare feet, leading from the hallway to the foot of her bed. Her throat went dry. The footsteps stopped directly in front of her. Terrified, Maya spent the rest of the night wide awake, staring at the door. The next morning, she decided she had to leave. She couldn't stay another night, not with whatever was in the apartment. She packed a small bag, intending to spend a few days at a friend's place. But as she reached the door to leave, something strange happened. The front door, which she had locked the night before, was already wide open. Maya froze. She had been so careful to lock it. She hadn't heard it open all night, and no one else had keys. Shaken, she slammed the door behind her and left without looking back. 2 days later, Mrs. Kilpatrick called. "I found your bag by the door," she said. Did you forget something? You must have left in a hurry." Maya's stomach twisted. She had taken the bag with her. She hadn't forgotten anything. Mrs. Kilpatrick continued, her voice low. "And I've heard footsteps upstairs. I thought you were back." Maya's blood ran cold as the landlord's voice dropped into a whisper. "I saw you in the window last night."